Take a deep breath in. As you breathe in a resourceful feeling of relaxation. And on the next outward breath, that's it, allow those eyelids to close. And as they close, notice that you can give more of your attention to my voice. Breathing in a resourceful feeling of relaxation and exhaling tension. As you breathe in and breathe out, notice that on the outward breath, it can get slower and longer, allowing more of what you exhale to leave your body, including that tension, creating a vacuum so that on the next inward breath in, you're breathing in something relaxing and resourceful. I want you to imagine really bright, glowing, healing white light. I want you to imagine that as you breathe in through your nose, that healing white light is going in through your nose, down your windpipe into your lungs, and in the same way that your heart can take oxygen from the air and distribute it to every cell in your body. I want you to imagine that as you breathe in that healing white light, your heart is doing the same thing with this healing, resourceful, relaxing energy. The brighter you make that light in your mind's eye, going in through your nose and filling your lungs, almost like it's glowing inside you, the more that your heart can extract the healing properties of that white light and distribute to every cell in your body. Your body already knows how to breathe in something useful and exhale the waste, the carbon dioxide. And in this case, I want you to imagine that as you breathe in that healing white light, what you exhale is anything that is responsible for the opposite of healing. That could be stress, tension. It could be beliefs that no longer serve you. It could be pain that has already been resolved in the issue. It could be emotions that don't serve you anymore. As you breathe in that healing white light, notice that as you exhale, it looks much darker as it leaves your body, representing those things that aren't serving you leaving your body as this resourceful relaxation and healing properties fill your body. And I want you to imagine that this is a form of respiratory transfusion, that each and every breath you're breathing in healing properties and you're exhaling anything that has been a cause of problems or pain. See the darkness, the grayness, the dullness leaving your body, and then on that next inward breath in, white, bright, vibrant, healing, resourceful energy. And then continue to breathe in and breathe out. And I want you to imagine that you are in a wonderful place, just in your imagination, perhaps a place in nature, maybe a meadow, maybe by a beach, maybe a forest. Whatever comes to mind is exactly what it should be. And somewhere nearby, I want you to imagine there's a waterfall. Even if it doesn't make sense that it's there, just allow a waterfall to be there. And notice that it doesn't make sense for nature to try and control the flow of that water. Water will find a way. Instead, nature accommodates the water, allowing rivers and streams to be formed. And if, just based on the landscape, it can't continue in a natural gradient, then a waterfall is just a natural consequence of the water flowing and finding its way. As you look at the waterfall and hear the cascading water going to the next level down, I want you to get a sense that you are unlocking a sense of flow within you. Continuing to breathe in that healing white light and exhaling any tension, any stress, any concerns, enabling you to go deeper and deeper relaxed. As now in front of you, I want you to imagine there are large, scales, the kind of scales that you would see in the scales of justice. Traditional old scales that perhaps old traders would use to count the weight of fruit or merchandise or minerals or diamonds. And I want you to imagine that this scale is a balance. On one side of the scale, it represents surrender and acceptance. And on the other side of the scale, it represents control. And I want you to get a sense that in life, there needs to be a balance between control and surrender, choosing what to accept and when to decide that if it's going to be, it's up to me, and doing whatever you can. And I want you to notice that this scale is loaded too heavily on the side of control. It's dipping down, perhaps to the left or to the right. And I want you to accept a suggestion to be true, that too much control is out of control. And being out of control is an injustice to the laws of nature and humanity. And if you accept that to be true, let me know by nodding your head. Currently the scales are completely tipped one-sided, but we're going to change that. And we're going to change that by traveling through time and giving justice to where injustice has taken place throughout your own generations. I want you to imagine that you're about to float up out of your body and to travel backwards into the past. Far into the past, I want you to go back to a time where you're witnessing your grandmother leave something, perhaps a safety pin, opened perhaps on a table or nearby to a child. And who knows what was on her mind at the time? Maybe she was distracted. I want you to be the silent, invisible observer in the room where you witness what happens. I want you to get a sense that there's no malicious intent. These things happen, and sometimes good things happen from bad circumstances. Every cloud has a silver lining. And I want you to observe as perhaps a baby or a young child takes the safety pin. Perhaps they bite or swallow or do something with that safety pin that causes great distress and pain. And as you witness that, I want you to follow the events that unfold. Perhaps there's an operation, ambulances, hospitals. And when you know that the child is going to be okay and will survive, I want you to follow where the mother of that child is. Perhaps she's in tears and perhaps she's on her own, but I want you to find a time when she was on her own, reflecting on what had happened in the past. Maybe she felt shame, guilt, even anger. And I want you to imagine that you are now in the room with her. I want you to be there, and then suddenly you become visible. And I want you to introduce you not as her granddaughter, but as a healer. I want you to tell her that you're there from the future and you're here to correct an injustice. But first of all, I want you to listen. Listen to what she says about what happened, how she feels, not to fix, but just to listen. I want you to get a sense that just by listening, you're helping. And when you feel that she's let go of that pain, those secrets perhaps the shame or the anger, just let me know by nodding your head. I want you to get a sense that this version of the past has already been vulnerable just by sharing information with you. And I want you to give her what she really needed at that point in time. She was probably already getting a lot of judgment. She was probably getting a lot of criticism, being attacked as a mother, probably even questioning even if she was fit to be a mother. Feeling guilty for what happened, but then also feeling guilty for anger that she felt to someone else that also didn't know what was happening at the time. I want you to tell her that sometimes things just happen. I want you to let her know that not everything is a choice. Sometimes bad things happen and they provide opportunities to learn and opportunities to change how we perceive ourselves. And I want you to let her know that this was not her fault. It wasn't malicious. There was no negative intent. She wasn't trying to cause harm. Just a mistake. I want you to give her a glowing ball of energy that represents forgiveness. Not forgiveness from you, but her ability to forgive herself. She may do that immediately. She may do it weeks or months after. You're giving her the resource to be able to forgive herself when the time is right for her. I want you to hand her that ball of energy, and she takes it from you, and she places it right there in the center of her chest, and you can see her body absorbing the ability to forgive herself. And in doing so, you can see her facial expressions change. Maybe she has already forgiven herself, or maybe it will happen later, but just the idea that forgiveness is possible. She doesn't need to carry that guilt, that shame, and all the pain with her for years and years and years. I want you to let her know that if she was to carry all of that guilt and all of that shame and all of that anger and all of that frustration and all of that criticism and hurt, it doesn't just hurt her. It hurts her child that has already experienced pain. I want you to let her know that she's not forgiving herself just for herself. She's doing it for everyone around her. And if she accepts that to be true, or just the idea of that to be true, let me know by nodding your head. I want you to say goodbye, but give her a hug. Tell her that you love her. Tell her again it wasn't her fault. And tell her that you believe that this is something that, in a weird way, can help and benefit her, even if she doesn't know how that will be. It's time to go away, and then you become invisible again, float up into the air. And then I want you to go forwards in time to a time just before a school photo. A time where you see your mother. Maybe she's looking awkward, looking out of place, unsure of herself and who she's meant to be in this world. Many things happen, not of her choosing, and she's found herself like a fish out of water, not knowing who she is or where she is. And I want you to find a time when she was by herself, maybe in a room in the school, or maybe in a home the day before. I want you to, again, become visible again and then connect with her. Tell her that you're from the future, that you're a healer, and that you know things are tough. That you know that it's not easy for her being different to everyone else. And as a child, there is an insatiable desire to fit in. But that's difficult to do when you sound different and look different and feel different. She's trying to seek the validation and acceptance from the children and the people around her. And that's the wrong place. I want you to imagine that you're telling her that she's worthy just as she is. That she can accept herself exactly as she is and take pride in those things that make her unique. I want you to give her a gift, a glowing ball of energy that represents not just acceptance, but self-acceptance. Just as you gave your grandmother the ability to forgive herself. It's not for you to accept your mother. You're giving her the gift for her at that age to accept herself. I want you to look at her and tell her all the things that you like about her. Maybe you know her characteristics that have just always been there. Certain qualities, personality traits. I want you to tell her that she's beautiful. She doesn't need to change anything about her. And then give her that ball of energy that represents self-acceptance. And then see her taking that ball of self-acceptance, placing it on that chest. It's just a child, but she's accepting it. And then see her facial expressions change. I want you to get a sense of what it would have been like for her to truly accept herself at that young age. To have that resilience. If there was name calling, they would just bounce off like bullets off bulletproof glass. That she would take pride in those things that made her unique. And then I want you to imagine that you are now observing a school photo being taken. Except now you're seeing a version of your mother with a beaming smile, looking relaxed and comfortable in her own skin, full of self-acceptance. And then just imagine that you're able to follow what happened from that point onwards. Maybe it takes her life in a different trajectory. Things she did to try and cope, she didn't need to do. Maybe she ended up with a different name, a different face, but maybe she was happier. I want you to get a sense that all of these, they don't change the past and they don't change reality, just the associations that you have with the past. And notice that as she changes, you start to feel different too. Imagine floating up and then going back to a time perhaps when you were just 12 years old. Something has just happened, not of your choosing. And I want you to imagine that you are visiting yourself as a young girl. When you're on your own, try to make sense as to what's happened. You become visible again, and I want you again to say not that you are her from the future, but you are just a healer from the future. Here to give a gift of something that she needs at this point in time more than anything else. And listen to her tell you what happened. Maybe she couldn't find the words. She didn't know how to change what was happening at that particular point in time. And I want you to tell her that there is no reason to feel shame, no reason to feel embarrassment. That she doesn't need to tell her mother because she's already told you and you accept what's happened and you're not judging her. She's lovable regardless of what happened. I want you to give her a hug. Tell her she is beautiful, worthy, and tell her that there is nothing that she needs to fear so long as she can find that strength within her. I want you to give her 2 gifts. The antidote to fear is not confidence, it's courage. And I also want you to give her a glowing ball of energy that represents self-acceptance. That no matter what happens, you're giving her the ability to love and accept herself unconditionally. But you're also giving her this gift of courage so that when fear is there, she has the ability to do the difficult thing. And sometimes the difficult thing is not to do the thing, but to let go of the thing. Giving her the ability to let go, to surrender. And surrender and letting go requires courage, because you're trusting variables outside of yourself. I want you to see her taking these resources, absorbing them into her, and notice how it immediately changes her facial expressions. Perhaps a girl that may have been sobbing or crying, or at least wondering what things mean for her, now seems a bit more comfortable, happy, safe. I want you to tell this girl that she doesn't need food to numb the pain. She doesn't need food to cope with the anxiety that comes from not being in control, because she now has the courage to accept that some things can't be controlled. Courage is a muscle that gets stronger over time. And where courage is most needed is when that strength hasn't developed yet. And yet she now has that courage. I want you to give her a hug. Let her know that you believe in her, that you will love her no matter what happens, no matter what her body weight is or body shape is. You will love her unconditionally. And of course, she is you and you is her. And I want you to get a sense that as you say goodbye, you then float back all the way to a relaxing place next to a waterfall and a balance. Old-fashioned weighing scales that at one point was heavily weighted towards control. Find yourself back in your body, looking at those scales, hearing the waterfall, and yet something strange has happened. The scales are now balanced. And notice they're not tipped entirely towards acceptance, because in the same way that too much control is out of control, too much acceptance and surrender is also out of control. You're now seeing the scales perfectly balanced, representing more balance in your life, but also that injustices of the past have now been put right. And the biggest injustice is when someone believes something untrue based on an event that wasn't their fault and wasn't fair. You've righted those wrongs, you've altered those beliefs, and now the scales of justice are balanced, but also the balance between control and surrender now feels balanced in your life. And if you feel more of a sense of equilibrium inside yourself, let me know by nodding your head. And now it's time to leave this place. And realize that this is all just thoughts within thoughts, ideas within ideas, dreams within dreams, and you're returning back to the present, listening to the sound of my voice in the immediate present as you take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your nose. Just wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes, get a sense that you're fully integrated into your physical body right now. Very soon I will count from 1 to 10 to awaken you, but you will awaken with a sense of self-acceptance you haven't felt for a while, with a sense of energy that is now inside you, that you feel healthier and healed in key areas of your life, enabling you to not need to do certain things you have been doing, because that's trying to fix a problem that isn't a problem anymore. As you accept yourself, the need to use food as a coping mechanism diminishes drastically. And the more courage you activate to surrender and let go, the stronger and more courageous you will be. Counting from 1 to 10 to awaken you. 1, 2, 3, waking up. 4, 5, 6, more alert. 7, 8, open your eyes, open your eyes. 9, 10, wide awake, wide awake, wide awake.